because there's plenty more of the, ooh, it's so good.
Yum, Mr. Food. Well, folks, coming up in just a few minutes, Donald Rumsfeld on Capitol Hill.
As we showed you a little while ago, he's already in the Senate hearing room, the defense secretary under fire and answering tough questions about the Iraqi prisoner abuse scandal. Art Barron's in the newsroom with more for us. Art?
Well, Rumsfeld will deliver an apology to the Senate panel for not informing Congress about the abuses. Now, as you mentioned, he entered that chamber, the Senate chamber, about 15 minutes ago. He's there now, and he should be speaking in the next 5 to 10 minutes on Capitol Hill. What will certainly be interesting to watch here is if the defense secretary can ease the anger out there on Capitol Hill over these photos taken inside an Iraqi prison camp. We were all stunned after 60 Minutes to broadcast these photos showing U.S. military personnel allegedly abusing and humiliating Iraqi prisoners. Many Democrats are calling for Rumsfeld to step down or for President Bush to fire him. But yesterday, during a joint appearance with Jordan's King Hussein, President Bush said, despite the photos, he has confidence in Rumsfeld.
He's an important part of my cabinet, and he'll stay in my cabinet.
And Rumsfeld's testimony on Capitol Hill is expected to begin any time right now. He's in the Senate chambers as I speak, and this will probably be the most important testimony he has ever made in his career. Live at the breaking news desk, Art Barron, CBS 4 News.
Art, thank you. And that's it for the special edition of CBS 4 News. We thank you for watching.
If you see news happening, give us a call. The hotline number, 866-658-TIPS. That's 866-658-8477.
And we are just moments away from CBS News special coverage of Donald Rumsfeld's testimony before the Senate Armed Services Committee. It should start in just a moment.
That's right. We will see you again for CBS 4 News at 5. Till then, we are going to join Dan Rather for a special CBS News report.
This is a CBS News special report. Dan Rather reporting from the world headquarters of CBS News in New York. Good morning. We're on the air to bring you the testimony of United States Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld. He has been summoned before the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee to explain why he did not inform them months ago about his own department's investigations into the abuse of Iraqi prisoners. The story broken first last week by 60 Minutes too. In a related story, the Wall Street Journal today says the Red Cross delivered a report to the Bush administration earlier this year, concluding that abuse of Iraqi prisoners by U.S. military intelligence personnel was widespread and in some cases, quoting from the Red Cross report now, tantamount to torture, unquote. So far, 6 low-level American guards have been charged and 7 others in the military have been disciplined in one way or another. The Army says it is also looking into 10 prisoner deaths now. 2 others have already been ruled homicides. Some Democrats and some newspapers are calling for Secretary Rumsfeld to resign or be fired. But President Bush is, at least so far, defending Rumsfeld, saying Rumsfeld is a good Secretary of Defense and, in the President's words, will remain in the cabinet. Let's go down to CBS News correspondent David Martin at the Pentagon. David, as we look at the pictures of the hearing room where this is going to take place, put a frame around this. Put this in some perspective and context for us.
Well, Dan, Secretary Rumsfeld has got to do a couple of things here. One, and I expect him to do this, he is going to accept personal responsibility for both what happened at that prison and for failing to notify Congress as this scandal began to bubble to the surface. But I have to tell you, given the amount of scrambling that has been going on around here this morning, and given Secretary Rumsfeld's penchant for ad-libbing, I wouldn't say anything is guaranteed about this hearing, either in Rumsfeld's testimony or in the committee's reaction. And the man to watch on the committee is the chairman, Republican Senator John Warner. Right now, he is saying that at this point, he has no reason to lose confidence in Secretary Rumsfeld. If Rumsfeld loses him during the course of this hearing, fails to persuade him that he has his arms around this problem and intends to do something about it, and if he loses Warner, then he's going to lose the other Republicans on this committee, and then it won't be just Democrats calling for his resignation. It will be Democrats and Republicans, and then I think his job will be in real jeopardy. Dan?
David, I want to make sure I understand. It's your read that as long as Senator John Warner, the Republican who chairs the committee here today, is with Rumsfeld, Rumsfeld's likely to stay. If he loses Warner, high likelihood he'll go?
That certainly is going to start the momentum toward his departure. He's going to be more trouble than his worth.
First of a series of hearings to receive testimony regarding the mistreatment of Iraqi prisoners by some, I repeat, some elements and certain personnel of the Armed Forces of the United States in violation of U.S. and international laws. Testifying before us today is the Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Donald Rumsfeld. He is joined by the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Richard Myers, Acting Secretary of the Army, Les Brownlee, Army Chief of Staff, General Peter Schoonmaker, and Central Command Deputy Commander Lieutenant General Lance Smith. We welcome each of you today. I've had the privilege of being associated with, and more importantly, learning from the men and women of the armed forces for close to 60 years of my life. And I can say that the facts that I now have from a number of sources represent to me as serious an issue of military misconduct as I have ever observed. These reports could also seriously affect this country's relationships with other nations, the conduct of the war against terrorism, and place in jeopardy the men and women of the armed forces wherever they are serving in the world. This mistreatment of prisoners represents an appalling and totally unacceptable breach of military regulations and conduct. Most significant, the replaying of these images day after day throughout the Middle East, and indeed the world, has the potential to undermine the substantial gains, emphasize the substantial gains towards the goal of peace and freedom in various operation areas of the world, most particularly Iraq, and the substantial sacrifice by our forces and those of our allies in the war on terror. Let me be as clear as one senator can be. This is not the way for anyone who wears the uniform of the United States of America to conduct themselves. This degree of breakdown in military leadership and discipline represents an extremely rare, and I repeat, rare chapter in the otherwise proud history of the armed forces of the United States. It defies common sense. It contradicts all the values we Americans learn beginning in our homes. Members of the committee, as we conduct this hearing, I urge you that we take every care that our actions, our words, our individual and collective conduct in this hearing not reflect unfairly on the 99.9% of our uniformed personnel who are performing remarkable tasks and in some cases making the ultimate sacrifice of life and limb to win the war on terror. Each of us on the committee has nothing but the strongest support for our brave men and women in uniform and their families, and what we seek through this and following hearings is to find out for the American people is only to strengthen and honor their efforts, not in any way to detract from them and their accomplishments. I would point out that while some systems have failed, we are here today because of a courageous enlisted man and his lieutenant, whose values, American values, compel them to step forward and inform their superiors. They did the right thing. And as this committee performs its constitutional duties and hearings and oversight, we are working in the same spirit as those two soldiers. Questions before us today are, Who knew what and when? What did they do about it? And why were members of Congress not properly and adequately informed? My 25 years on this committee, I've received hundreds of calls day and night from top and all levels, uniform and civilian, from the Department of Defense when they, in their judgment, felt it was necessary. And I dare say other members on this committee have experienced the same courtesy. I did not receive such a call in this case, and yet I think the situation was absolutely clear and required it, not only to me, but my distinguished ranking member and other members of this committee. Members of the committee, our central task here today is to get all the facts in this difficult situation, no matter where they lead, no matter how embarrassing they may be, so that we can assess our response and in the end, make sure that such dereliction of duty as is in this case never happens again in the proud history of our country. Senator Levin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The abuses that were committed against prisoners in U.S. custody at the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq dishonored our military and our nation, and they made the prospects for success in Iraq even more difficult than they already are. Our troops are less secure, and our nation is less secure because these depraved and despicable actions will fuel the hatred and the fury of those who oppose us. General Takuba's investigation, as reported, paints an alarming picture of abuse and humiliation of Iraqi prisoners. It has enraged people here at home and throughout the civilized world. Humiliating and sexually abusing prisoners has nothing to do with the effective internment or interrogation of prisoners. In fact, such actions are counterproductive to those goals. As we seek to bring stability and democracy to Iraq and to fight terrorism globally, our greatest asset as a nation is the moral values that we stand for. Those values have been compromised. To begin the process of restoring them, the people involved who carried out or who authorized or suggested that we should, quote, loosen prisoners up or, quote, make sure they get the treatment, must be held accountable. So must anyone up the chain of command be held accountable who had command responsibility over the interrogation and security of prisoners and who knew or should have known of these abuses and looked the other way. General Takuba's finding that, quote, personnel assigned to the 372nd MP Company were directed to change facility procedures to set the conditions for military intelligence interrogations is bolstered by pictures that suggest that the sadistic abuse was part of an organized and conscious process of intelligence gathering. In other words, those abusive actions do not appear to be aberrant conduct by individuals, but part of a conscious method of extracting information. If true, the planners of this process are at least as guilty as those who carried out the abuses. The President's legal counsel, Alberto Gonzales, reportedly wrote in a memorandum that the decision to avoid invoking the Geneva Conventions, quote, preserves flexibility in the war on terrorism. Belittling or ignoring the Geneva Conventions invites our enemies to do the same and increases the danger to our military servicemen and women. It also sends a disturbing message to the world that America does not feel bound by internationally accepted standards of conduct.
The findings of General Takuba's report is reported on a public